All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is going down on May 2nd. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves in Times Square, an incredible card. You got Garcia Romero, you got Haney Ramirez, you got Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza Jr. It's all going to be on the zone, but it's going to be an incredibly unique experience in New York City, and the man behind it all is the man who joins us right now, Eddie Hearn. Eddie, Peter Rosenberg, DJ Juanyto, how are you, man?
I'm good, thank you. Good, excited for a big few weeks coming up for boxing in and around New York. It's a great time for the sport.
Can you take us through May 2nd real quick? How is this going to work? Like, what is the actual physical location? How are you pulling this thing off?
Yeah, so the actual physical location is bang right in the middle of Times Square. I mean, it is the wildest idea anyone's ever had. You know, His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, who is, the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority in Saudi Arabia, he bought the Ring magazine and he wants to create these iconic moments for the sport. And, the thought of doing this in a public place is like, I can't tell you the difficulties from an operational point of view. I mean, and when he said to me, we want to create a spectacle, I said, okay, great. What do you want to do? Do you want to go to, the new stadium in Vegas, or you want to go to, Barclays Center? No, we want to do it in the middle of Times Square. I'm like, what? And that's what he's done. And, you've got three of kind of like the hottest young fighters in the sport in Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, and Devin Haney, all in big fights. And, logistically, it's going to be a real difficult one to pull off, but we're just a couple of weeks away now.
How many people will be able to consume the fight live in person, as opposed to, of course, the millions that will watch on the zone?
Probably it will be invite only for around 200 people.
Okay.
They're not, when you create this thing, you can't just let random people just come, there's going to be some kind of seating element in there. Tickets aren't available for the public, which is, one of the reasons I think they want to drive people to the broadcast and to view the spectacle. You're going to have the screens up in the background of Times Square with all the graphics on, the fights on, it's going to be really unique. But yeah, obviously from a sort of permit perspective as well, you have to, make sure that obviously logistically it's safe for a certain amount of people. And yeah, it won't be a ticketed event, just an event you can watch live on the zone.
The conversations between Turkey, you, and adding someone like De La Hoya to this event. You guys have some past stuff. How did that come about?
Turkey has got a great way of bringing people together who, in boxing, it's like any business, right? You've got your rivals, you've got he said this, they said that. And then Turkey kind of comes in and bashes your head together and goes, guys, stop it. Like, we're trying to make great fights here. If you guys keep arguing, we're never going to make the fights, which is, sometimes you need someone with a little bit of common sense to come into this crazy boxing world. And, he did that as well with myself and Frank Warren in the UK. We've been rivals for 15 years. I never even spoke to Frank Warren once in 15 years. And now we're working together. We're on the same platform with DAZN and Oscar as well. We've been going back and forward for years with all types of madness. And, now all of a sudden we've met, we get on. I think a lot of these people share the same passions that you have, which is boxing. Right. And actually, when you sit down with them in a social environment, you realize actually, your life is boxing, my life is boxing. We're quite similar probably in that regard. So, yeah, it's been really refreshing. Obviously, we're partners with Golden Boy on this event as well. They've got 3 fighters on the card. And it's going to be great. I think it's great for boxing. I think more promoters seem to be working with each other at the moment, which is going to make bigger fights happen. And, you got obviously that massive event on May 2nd. You got Jerome Boots Ennis this Saturday at Atlantic City.
There you go.
In a huge fight. Like, it's just big fight after big fight. Katie Taylor got announced yesterday against Serrano in New York. There's big time boxing coming left, right, and centre. For me, boxing has way surpassed MMA particularly in the last 6 months. Like, bigger fights, bigger narrative, bigger digital conversations. And I think boxing's in a great place.
Does that even surprise you? I mean, I think you can make a case that, this last year, when you include the the fights, also the emergence over the last couple of years of Alexander Usyk, which is now we have a truly a dominant heavyweight, it seems, and a guy to be taken out. Plus, you had the spectacle of your buddy Jake Paul and Mike Tyson's fight, the Katie Taylor Serrano now trilogy that we'll have at MSG. It really has had a true moment. You, as a boxing man through and through, how exciting has that been, and has it surprised you at all? Just how good the last year has been?
Yeah, I mean, the narrative is always that boxing is broken. It's bullshit. There's rubbish, right? Boxing's massive. It's always massive. It's always been massive. But, like any business, it's cyclical. And right now, we're in a tremendous position. Turki Al-Sheikh's come in, made a huge investment in the sport. You're seeing all the big fights happen. Fury Usyk, the undisputed heavyweight world championship. Beterbiev against Bivol, the undisputed light heavyweight world championship. Canelo Crawford coming up later this year. And what it's doing is it's just generating and lifting the ecosystem of boxing. So more fans are now engaged in the sport. More fans are watching other shows. You talk about big fights like you mentioned there, and big crowds. Whether it's selling out Madison Square Garden or 10,000 to watch Boots in Atlantic City on Saturday. We're seeing the whole sport being lifted, and there's always been a conversation of MMA and boxing. I don't see the big fights in MMA right now, and people talking about UFC or MMA in the same way they're talking about boxing. So I think we're having our run now, and hopefully it continues for a very long time.
You're so connected to the Anthony Joshua story as well, and obviously he's such a unique star. When he lost Ruiz at MSG, he came up to my radio show that week, and I remember he jumps off the page in every way, and you immediately sort of start salivating because you go, this is just such a star, right? And obviously he's had a really interesting career for a guy who kind of seemed like a, quote, pretty boy early on. This is a guy who's fought through a lot of challenges. Where do you see the Anthony Joshua story going? And just on a personal note, is it frustrating to you looking back at how hard you and others were working to get the ultimate sort of heavyweight crown during that period of Fury, Wilder, Joshua's emergence? We were just never quite able to get the timing right to get the ultimate moment. Do you have any frustrations and regret about that? And where do you see Anthony Joshua over the next year or two?
Yeah, I mean, we signed a contract to fight Tyson Fury a few years ago. He lost the tribunal with a hearing with Deontay Wilder where he had to take the rematch. And, unfortunately, we couldn't make that fight. We also signed to fight Deontay Wilder back in 2023. And we were announcing the fight in the ring on December 21st. And Deontay Wilder lost to Joseph Parker in that night. So we lost that fight as well. I think maybe I don't think we should be blamed for this, but we just chased undisputed. That's all AJ and that's all we wanted. We were one belt short of undisputed. And then we got the small matter of Alexander Usyk put on us as a mandatory. And a lot of people said, don't fight him. He's too good. He's this. And AJ said, no way. He's my mandatory. I'm not giving up my belt. The whole thing for us is to try and win all the belts. So I'm going to fight Usyk. And obviously he got beat twice. The second fight was a much more competitive fight. But, the Ruiz moment was tough. I think that it's frustrating sometimes. You've met the guy, probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet, probably one of the greatest role models there could ever be in boxing. And you still get criticised for being a two-time world heavyweight champion. I mean, if you look at that guy's resume, we're just missing Wilder and Fury, and that's the hope, is that Mr. Fury comes out of retirement. I really truly believe he will. He's not been in decline. He had two good performances against Usyk. AJ got beat against Dubois, but before that was on a great run, and everyone was saying he's the most dangerous heavyweight in the world again. So everyone's quite fickle, but for me, Fury AJ is still the fight, and hopefully it can happen this year, but it will need Fury to come out of retirement.
Totally agree. Don't see why that fight isn't meaningful for both of those guys at this point. Juanyto, got anything else for Freddie?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's happening this weekend, April 12th, Atlantic City, Bulwark Hall. You have Jerome Boots Enos and you have Stantonius. It's going to be a crazy welterweight unification. So you definitely want to see it on the Zone streaming live. I just want to know for you from your goals with your promotion with Matchroom. What is your goals for this year? Like besides, of course, winning, the fights for your fighters. But what's your goals that you want to reach? That where you feel
So
like you need to achieve to be where you at?
I want to create big moments, right? I want to create nights where we can drive American fight fans to the arena to give them an experience and value for money and a smile on their face when they leave. And I think this Saturday is a great example of that. Like when I was growing up, Atlantic City was not the fight capital, but it was up there. It was competing. And there's something about the Boardwalk Hall, right? The fights that have been staged there, the people that have fought there in the past. You're talking about some of the most iconic names and iconic fights. And Atlantic City is an interesting place, right?
Very much.
You go
Very
down there
much.
on a weekday, it's quite eerie, and then all of a sudden, boom, it comes alive.
Right.
And this Saturday, we'll have 10,000 in the Boardwalk Hall for Ennis against Stanionis. When we talk about the best be the best, this is it. Number one against number two in the division. Unification fight, all the marbles to tell us who is the best welterweight on the planet. And that's the kind of events that we want to create. And as a British promoter, to come up and fill up the Boardwalk Hall, like that is reinvigorating the sport in this country. And that's what we need to see. You've got so many great fighters out there. But in the past, boxing has fallen short, of course, of American football, baseball, basketball, college football, college system, ice hockey, and even UFC. But now we're starting to creep up that pecking order. And you've got some incredible talent. And Boots Ennis is one of them. You're talking about a guy that could be in the same conversation as Mayweather, Leonard, Crawford. Those guys that have had that lineal championship over the last couple of decades. And Atlantic City will be wild this Saturday. Wild. And I can't wait.
Last thing for you, Eddie. It's going to be a big one this weekend in AC, and then, of course, May 2nd in Times Square, both on the Zone. You and Jake Paul came to a settlement. You guys have had a very interesting relationship over the years. Where do you guys stand right now on a personal level, and also your respect level for what Jake is capable of as a boxer? Has it gone up at all, or is it still novelty to you?
Yeah, I feel like, the digital and the social media and the clickbait world, it kind of drives people apart, and people are very different in person than they are online. If I bump into Jake Paul, it's quite cordial. Do you know what I mean? And then you might watch an interview and say, and he probably does the same, because you get asked all kinds of different questions. And I'm always quite honest with my opinion. And my opinion of him as a fighter is that he's improved a lot from, 6 months ago, a year ago, because he's working hard. I promoted his professional debut. Maybe I'm to blame for this whole thing, but at the same time, you have to respect the guy that has dedicated himself to the craft that is not easy, right? And I believe he loves boxing. I believe he loves the challenge, the game, and everything. And I still don't. There is no doubt he's nowhere near world level, right? But again, we had this big argument years ago where I called him an average fighter, right? I actually was being quite complimentary at that point, because you can't. It's very unlikely in your 20s to just take up the sport and become a decent fighter, right? But he's improved a lot since there. And I'm not saying that he's going to go and win world championships, but one thing I would love to do is to see him against a real boxer, not a top 10 guy, not a top 20 guy, just a top 100 guy, because I think there is a chance that he could beat some of those guys. And then where does it go? The problem is when you fight those names, it's a smaller event. It's a smaller moment, which equals smaller dollars. And Jake is about big nights, big moments, And
and those fights provide real risk too. It's big risk, low reward on that night, which is tough.
Listen, he's doing smart business. That's the reality. I mean, it's all very well being brave and say, fight a real fighter, what, for a couple of $100,000 when I can fight I don't know, a superstar and maybe beat them, or fight a big name in boxing, get pummeled, but make $100 million. Like he talks about Anthony Joshua, he talks about Canelo Alvarez. The reality is, I think he'll fight Juanyto Davis.
You think that could? You think that one could happen?
Ooh.
But I just think, that's the rumor that I heard a while ago. But then obviously
Tank and Paul, let's go.
Yeah, but also Tank's 135 pounds.
Right.
Tank Paul's 200 pounds. I mean, that. But look, Jake creates those crazy moments, and I think he's brave enough. Like, it's still dangerous, the Tank fight, but if he fights Canelo Alvarez, it's very dangerous for him. If he fights Anthony Joshua,
and Tank got a new trainer. Tank got a new trainer. He's working in the gym, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy that's 5'6", and
Jake is a big man.
Yeah.
When you're around Jake,
listen,
it's like being around.
You've got to
heavyweight.
respect the fact that the guy is dedicating himself to the craft, and he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
As are you, Eddie. Things seem to be going pretty well over there at Matchroom. We appreciate the time. I might have to find a way to get us in the. I won't say in the building. I might have to find a way to get us inside Times Square come May 2nd. It's going to be a happening. It'll be on the Zone. We look forward to it. What a lineup, Eddie. Thank you for making time, man.
Cheers, guys. No problem. Take
care.